Hi, my name is Gina Cavalier, and this is a Liberated Healer podcast. And today I have an old friend and a colleague and somebody I met many, many years ago, Kevin Lyman. He was a creator and founder of the live music production company, the Warp Tour, where I met him touring with my then ex-husband, Dave King from Flogging Molly. And I think there was they were in a cargo van with about 10 people on the first tour. It was a very interesting thing, and they had about 750,000 people annually that came for the longest running North American festival. And there's always a charitable compartment to his tours. In 2013, they collected 33,000 pounds of food, and you just really helped launch a lot of people's career. And thank you, Kevin Lyman, for being here today.
Oh, thank you. And my gosh, riding in a cargo van is not the best for any relationship long term. It was bad enough when I'd get my wife to come out on the tour bus once in a while and she'd want to get home as quick as possible. But the cargo van, that one's a whole different level.
Well, I mean, a lot of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is finding inspiration to pursue those things that are hard. And you obviously did that and did that many times. And one of the things I did admire extremely about Dave and Flogging Molly was they never gave up. And at that time when he started riding in a cargo van, I think he was in his 40s. So never give up. It does, people put our age onto things, like we can't start new things. So young and old, this, I love this conversation and why I was really wanted to talk to you, because accomplishing things is hard,
Well, I think it's one of those things where, I'm now, as a full-time professor at the University of Southern California, it's like the first thing I tell my students is the only thing you run out of is time, in life. But, if you're that person, you may fail at some things, but keep trying other things. And, so right now I'm in that other phase now. I'm now over 60 years old. And I'm like, talk about being scared. Putting on music festivals came easy compared to going in front of a class the first time. And then easing into being able to work with students, on a full-time professor basis. I mean, talk about, I came right off the road, literally got done at 10 o'clock and I was at HR the next morning and started being, and this is my 5th year right now.
Wow.
And it's fabulous, but it is that kind of thing. And I really believe right now we're going through such a time where I'm seeing younger people that, realizing they can't just kind of flow through life. They're going to have to stand for something to engage. So I spend a lot of my time working with them. And then I'm, constantly still, I was at a festival this weekend and you walk backstage and people go, "What's your legacy?" And I go, "Just look around. Everyone that's working this festival started on that tour in one of those vans or in a bus or in those hot parking lots."
I heard a story about, and this is a little bit of kind of goes into what we're talking about, that there was a band that was just following the tour, like in their own car on the Warp Tour. And then somebody was saying, "Hey, this," and they would like play in the parking lot for the people waiting. And people were saying, "Hey, there's this band." They're like, "Yeah, dudes, we're just following you around." And you went up to them and said, "You know what? I'll give you some time on a stage. You just have to work the barbecue or something." And, that's that tenacity we're talking about. Just, you gotta be available. And then we have to have people like you who give people, recognize that and give them the opportunity.
Yeah. People were always asking me, like a lot of times, when you go to a concert, you don't usually see like people out talking to people in the lines coming in or even setting up their own stage, or we had people in flatbed trucks driving around. And it was one of those things where it was, people go, "How'd you feel about that?" And I said, I didn't encourage, but I didn't discourage. Putting myself in learning in life to put yourself in other people's shoes early on. I was like, well, what are they going to do? Stay at home and be home all summer, or go out on this adventure and be part of this adventure? We were having an adventure on this festival, but when you're drawing that many people, they were out there meeting people, selling CDs. And if I give them an opportunity once in a while, it was good. Now, the discouraging part was it was a grinding, hard tour, and, falling asleep while you're driving, and, the grind of it could be very hard. But it was really a great thing, but walking away from it too is understanding. And I think right now that's a hard thing for a lot of people our age it's all of a sudden you've been doing something for so long and you get recognized for one thing and you step out of that limelight. I think it's hard on a lot of people, and having that transition from that lifestyle that we had, which was, on the road, as an artist, you're up on that stage each night. And I think that's why sometimes these artists like tour forever. They don't know what they're going to do afterwards. But I was lucky to figure out, how to maybe, transition into something else,
And that's one of the stuff that we talk about, because I remember it would be, Dave would be gone for 3 months and he'd come home and he would go through a lull of kind of missing that stage. And then he would get so used to being home that he loved being home and didn't want to go out again. And so it was always like that, actually, for us. And so it was a constant up and down wave. It was never like a cool, smooth thing, at least for me. So that's why, I think sometimes being with people that are in your same field is really helpful. But
I think it was interesting because there is that transition in relationships from the road lifestyle to the home lifestyle. And we went through everyone goes through it. And, we come off the road, and my wife used to be like, you're like a wild animal almost, because you're running at such high intensity. I've got my nice lifestyle that I've assumed all control of the household, and I've been able to manage to keep it. And all of a sudden we jump back in and try to fix everything and do everything so quick. And that was a very disruptive time. And then when my daughter started touring with me, it would be like 3 of us coming from home at once. And it would be like this overwhelming thing. And I actually learned it from Bono, actually, when I heard that even Bono, is U2, he wasn't allowed to come back into the house right away.
Oh my goodness.
So it was like a week he would stay at the local pub upstairs in one of the little Airbnb kind of things. And at first his wife would come see him, and then he'd come to the house and have dinner with the family. And then it took a week of reacclimation. So that's where I started getting into that too with my wife, try to have her meet me in neutral ground. We would try to meet after a tour, like in the neutral ground where she didn't have, so we could ease back into that relationship, because those were really very hard times for us in some ways. And you don't think you're like bouncing off the walls. And we're also, navigating that potential lifestyle balance that the road, it was acceptable to sit down and you drink a bottle of wine before you had appetizers, and wait, you can't do that. And all of a sudden it was just trying to assimilate back into society.
And back then, actually, a lot of people didn't really talk about mindfulness. So you didn't have these other tools that are becoming a little bit more forefront, which is what I teach, because I worked in the studios, so it was an intense, production, always production. And I actually started learning about these tools to kind of relax and to kind of own my seniority and my confidence and everything, through these techniques. But we didn't really have that back then, or nobody really talked about it, or it seemed like, oh, are you a hippie or something like that? So,
well, yeah, I mean, we're talking more and more about it. Next week on campus, I'm having a mental health festival for these people that are looking to go into the entertainment business, because the word mindfulness wasn't really, we didn't really understand mindfulness. It was strange on the road because with a tour like the Warped Tour, Mayhem, or what I did, but Warped Tour was really it was a city we moved down the road. We had 800 people on the road. So we had to balance it out. We'd have people that were playing poker and having, playing music and drinking and having fun. But then I had to balance that, and had yoga. There was yoga classes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Especially towards the end, the last 5-10 years of it, we started having yoga at night. There was mindfulness classes. There was actually some people that were maybe religious, had a Bible study class once a week. The only time I thought it was really got weird when they were all running around with brooms, and I go, what is everyone doing? They're playing that game Quidditch, like the Harry Potter game. I go, now that's not real. I know, a punk rock tour playing Quidditch backstage, that was a little bit, maybe a lot, but we had a great time. We learned how to balance it out, and I'm doing that right now in life, because when I was working in the business and I was working 320 nights a year and around the music scene, I really wish I had the skill set that I have now to help people through their addiction issues. We lost a lot of people to, Brad Knoll from Sublime was a good friend of mine, Hillel from the Chili Peppers, these people, but I didn't have that tool set. So I developed that tool set, and joining the Board of Music Cares that helps musicians in need. I kind of learned that tool set and then started identifying and oh, wow, we should bring a counselor out on the road with us, because they were trained in identifying it. I had the street knowledge of identifying a person maybe in need, and we could intervene kind of in a nice way and as a peer later on. And I think we actually helped some real people, maybe got them some counseling, maybe got them into many people into rehab that needed to go, that didn't recognize it. And later, now I'm in this point where I was at the festival the other day, and there's a lot of people our age that are still working at, and I'm like, how do you have to start preparing to transition out of this lifestyle?
Yeah.
And telling them, developing other interests, slowing down, letting some things going, passing it on to the new generation of people out there. Because I see so many people in our industry dying in their 60s, dying at a younger age, because they don't know how to moderate, just in anything. It just, the work, the hours they work, we used to work 16 hours a day. Didn't really matter. It was just, we did what we needed to get done. And now it comes down to, I'm learning more that, your body starts changing and it doesn't heal as quick and you don't recover as quickly. And it's a cumulative effect. And I was trying to describe that to someone backstage. I said, think your tank is getting below that empty level where it can't be refilled.
Well, I love that you have that, because you have the experience and that now you're also in this, you can have that conversation, because, an 18-year-old can't have that conversation with a 60-year-old, but the thing is that what I have found is find that one little thing that you are so excited about. So for me, it was wellness and spirituality and healing, right? So yeah, it took a lot of time to set up my podcast, or, to build this world. And there's some things that fell off that I started that I don't do anymore. But what you do is, if you take that one little baby step towards the thing that really excites you. So for example, maybe somebody you're talking to, it's like, why don't you think about, like, write down the things you love doing, teaching other people how to play guitar, or speaking about a passion that you have, or,
And you never want to say anything good came out of a pandemic, but it's a pandemic and it was really tough. But for a lot of the world I was in, it allowed us to slow down and reprioritize. When you're caught up in the hamster wheel of this business, you don't even realize what's going on. And then all of a sudden we went from everyone running to really basically 92% unemployment within a matter of a week, and everyone, it's Friday the 13th, 2020, May 13th, 2020 was the day that it all came crashing down. It started getting, but it came to a stop.
Yeah.
And then you saw a lot of people kind of go, wait a second, I want to reprioritize. So for myself, I don't want to ever say, like, it would be very selfish, but to be selfish for a moment, it allowed me to reprioritize. And for me, that's focusing on these students and teaching, focusing on, we're helping in the mental health field, doing my nonprofit work, but at the same time, challenging myself to do new things. I'm sitting here looking at a contract right now for a television show that I'm going to be part. I was asked to maybe be part of. I don't go shopping it, but you put yourself out there, and you never know. So, I always laughed at, you can resurrect your career at 61, no problem. You just got to throw it out there, and that's learned early about failure. We're all going to fail, and that's okay. And telling my students is the hardest part, because they've all been taught to test. Our school system doesn't allow people to fail. So I have the hardest discussions with my students the first week of school. I teach 5 classes, but in every time I first meet them, I say, I think you all know how to learn. You've learned how to get to be in this room and sitting in this chair. And that's through testing, through extra. But how many of you know how to think? And I think I think we've forgotten as a society how to think. We're not really thinking right now. And that's what kind of is stressful to me. Society is not thinking. We're allowing so many influences from so many different ways to process that we're not really thinking through what's really going on out there, and how, and then if you really, it starts overwhelming you. So I tell them, let's just focus and try to make our own world better, whatever as far as our fingertips, So if that means doing a food drive for our local community around our school. Okay, we're going to change it. And if everyone did a little something each day to just make their neighborhood a little better, I think things would come around. But we also have to learn to talk right now. And people just won't have a talk. We tend to be in this yelling phase where everything's on edge. Everyone's on edge, which is causing, we really have to address this, because the report came out this week that 70% of young people are suffering some sort of mental condition, anxiety, depression. That's a lot of people. And they say the ones who suffered most during this time were kindergartners.
Wow.
So we're going to have to, get it together, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why I'm so passionate about this, and doing it without judgment, and just constantly offering up different people and opportunities and content and different healing modalities, because one thing might resonate with someone that doesn't resonate with for someone else. That number is really staggering. I'm writing a book right now. I'm writing from the spiritual side of suicide, and also from the people that are left behind, and healing and information, and how to get awareness with a Dr. Amelia Kelly. And she's going to write the trauma response of the book. But it's literally just because I want to put out content out there that's more relative to, it's just not this or that. There's a lot of in between, and there's not a lot of in between information out there. So, and so you created a lot of these things, and that's what is the hard part, is getting it started. So if you have like an idea for a like, how'd you get into the opioid stuff? Was that obviously through the?
We lost people like Brad Knoll, early on, and I started hearing about fentanyl about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I started learning about it, and then Narcan, and we wanted to try to educate our fans. And it's not, you can't yell at them. You have to educate them. I always found, like, when sometimes I'd work those benefit shows where people are on stage, and I said, well, through education, maybe we can make a difference. We're going all the way back to working with the Truth Campaign, the anti-smoking campaign that we worked with for so many years, and sitting in the offices one time and hearing that they said through the work that you did, Kevin, through the exposure to our program, through their research and everything, you had a direct impact in saving 220,000 people, their lives, over time. And this was over many, many years. And this is what I was hearing about that. So I had the opportunity to work with a technology forward group using a thing called gamification. Everyone likes to play games. We play games when we go to grocery stores, whatever we're doing, we're playing, like, we react to games. So how can we create a game to educate people about opioids? So through technology, we had a thing where people would learn on an app the basics of what an opioid is, what an overdose is, what the Good Samaritan law is. And people would do this test based through our app, and they would earn rewards at our concerts. So if you had completed the whole program, you would get an acoustic set that no one else would get backstage, at the show. So we targeted a couple younger bands, Water Parks, and then We the Kings, that would play a little for an older crowd. And we ended up getting about 25,000 people to complete that app throughout a summer. And they got backstage shows from these artists. And it was more of a game. And people go, well, and of course, opioids are not a game, but we have to figure out what resonates with people. Mm-hmm. We have to understand what resonates with your audience, and they really reacted to that. And I think we're right now, something always stuck with me. The founders of Narcan were sitting in our backyard one day, and we were having a discussion, and they literally told me that in 5 years, and we're almost 5 years to the date, there would be no more drugs without fentanyl. Fentanyl would be in everything. Oh, and we're seeing it here. I mean, we had quite a few overdoses in high schools last week in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
So, and sadly, when a certain guy became president in 2017, and he made Kellyanne Conway in charge of his addiction program, I knew that we wouldn't get anything done for 4 years, and we didn't. We went backwards, and through that, then the pandemic hit and the isolation and the depression, and we're that's in a rough spot. But I think our artists are starting to speak out about it.
Yeah.
I always, some people say that musicians should stay out of things, but no, they need to amplify their voices even more.
Yeah.
And through some of these tragedies that we've had, like Taylor Hawkins and some of these things going on, I think artists are more than willing to speak about their mental conditions, their past addictions, how to their friends who have been been addicted, and maybe they should have spoken up sooner. So I think maybe, young people are speaking up. They're tired. They're tired. But they're smart. We have a very smart society, and actually using these technologies that have been twisted to take advantage of people that didn't grow up with technology. We grew up in a time, I talked to my father, he was 93 now. He's doing good, but he doesn't understand that the news is an opinion now versus the truth. He grew up with Walter Cronkite and limited resources for news, and we all determined our opinions with narrower focus, and he doesn't understand that. But young people realize you have to look at social media, you have to look at the news, you have to look at it with a skeptical eye now. Yeah. And you have to go to 5 places to arrive at the true truth versus living in an echo chamber.
So what are just some of the things about fentanyl that, do you know any of this, any of the science behind it, or why is it so addictive? You must have studied a little bit.
Well, 20% of the people can be, it kicks, you could become addicted using it the first time. 20% of the people it starts to affect. It's not a 30-day rehab program. It's a full lifetime challenge, but to retrain the brain from everything I've learned, it's 10 to 12 months to come down from. So when we're putting artists back on the road, they go through 30 days rehab, Mac Miller and these people, then they're not prepared, ready to go back on the road after this. Fentanyl can change the brain chemistry very, very quickly. And it's not something you can do in a 30-day rehab to get off of.
And that's just, like you said, it's life-changing, period.
Yeah. So, I think we have a responsibility as in our industry. I think, hate to say it, but artists are a commodity, and people realize that, one artist, the livelihoods of so many people are directly related to them. We have to keep our crews, we have to keep everyone healthy, but you can't just say, oh, we're going to be back on tour in 30 days. If you find out that someone is addicted, they're going to need more time.
And where do the facilities that are going to be that's expensive, so there's just a whole big, overwhelming, pain point.
It is, we're a microcosm society, and but we have abilities to raise funds to help people. Music Cares was a great platform for me. We donated 25 cents of every ticket I sold on all our festivals to Music Cares. I wish we had that as an industry-wide program. That 25 cents off of every ticket went into a fund to help these people. And, the industry, we would listen a little more, but they get caught up. You were part of that, you were there, and everything's moving so fast. There's albums coming out, there's tours, that sometimes it's slowed down, and someone just has to say, hey, wait, let's see what we can do on this tour to make things better.
Yeah, because, and also like we're with creative people that, that's always like a little bit of a different challenge. So what kind of classes are you teaching at the college?
Well, I teach branding and marketing. I teach a festival design and management class. I teach a touring class, a venue management class. But the class I'm really excited about is this week we're doing our mental health festival on campus. And I teamed up with Talinda Bennington, Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park's wife. Unfortunately, Chester succumbed to suicide. And she comes on campus and helps me organize this event. It's called the 320 Festival. We also did it online before. So we'll be doing that coming up on World Mental Health Day. And then That's really it's kind of, and I've been pushing for a class that all freshmen would take. It's called Philanthropic Thought and Entertainment, and where they would go in, because I say if you embed doing good into your business model when you have nothing, it will grow with you.
Yeah.
It's always things like, oh, we have to be making a lot of money to make a difference. Well, that's great. A lot of money usually means you buy the front row table at a charity dinner. But if you look at everything you do, and if you're doing a basement show, if you're doing something, and like we used to do with the canned foods, bring 3 cans of food, and that would go to the local food bank. So a lot of my students do things now, and they'll have concerts where you donate canned food at the front door. Just little things you can embed into your DNA that will grow with you. And that's what I felt I did and it just kind of grew. And all of a sudden, next thing you're doing, you're donating large chunks of money, or you're doing blood drives. That we had the largest international blood drive tied around my tours, and we didn't take blood at the shows. We did it prior to the shows, but all these little things. I think sadly, I was hoping coming out of the pandemic, people would do more of this, but a lot of people just rush back out on the road, start doing things. But I know that some of the artists are starting to take it into their own hands. And what I'm trying to do now is create very easy programs with other people, so artists can just plug it in, so that we do most of the work in the back end, but they can do it while they're out on tour or having an event or an album cycle or whatever they're working on.
Well, we certainly have a lot of resources for you. We have healers and meditation teachers around the world. So always let us know what you need, and we're happy to help you. Chester is actually one of the reasons why I kind of started this ideation for this book that I'm writing, because of these things that, I wanted to provide some more information and alternative opportunities. So, thank you so much. Is there anything we need to go out on that you want to kind of messaging? The one thing I wanted to hit on a little bit more with you, we mentioned it early on, was about that. How do you, when you don't know where to go, how do you build something? How do you get that inspiration to keep on going when everybody feels like it's negative, or they're judging you, or how do you be an entrepreneur? How do you create businesses and opportunities? Like, how do you get that going? Because that's something that a lot of people are a little bit afraid of.
Well, I think it's like my students, they're bred not to fail. Like, you can't fail. You got to keep. Failure is part of it if you learn from failure. And we're trying to, it's okay if you fail as long as you keep learning to move forward. 2, it came from an old friend that was out on tour with me, Ice-T, once when we were riding around on that tour bus. And he said, you have to start to listen to your gut. And it's very simple, but what's inside you can drive you, and then it drives you. And then I fail a lot in certain things, but it's like, okay, take that failure and just take a step back and never be in such a rush. And for me, it was never about primarily making money.
It always comes after, if you are set up right.
Yeah, it came. I've done better than I could have ever expected based on where my trajectory was going, because early on I realized I was terminally unemployable, basically, and I was going to have to make it myself. I think sometimes recognizing that I had to make it myself kept me going. But anytime I've done anything strictly for the money, it's never really been my best or most fulfilling projects. You just do things, when someone said, oh, you could potentially do this thing. Oh yeah, I'll do it. Well, now I'm looking at a 12-page contract that I have to go through right here. But I just want to do it. And I didn't even ask what I was going to be paid for. It just sounds like a challenge. And anytime you can keep challenging yourself, just incrementally, on a daily basis, it's a good thing. For me this week, it's a challenge, though. It's very simple. Like, you came to some of those barbecues backstage at Warped Tour, I'm sure. And we'd pop them up in the middle of the day. They'd be huge, but I have to do this for all the alumni, faculty, and parents and students. And it's been keeping me up at night. Like, I haven't had something keeping me up in ages. And it's all because I have to do this. And it's just a challenge because I really want to think through it properly. But and then it's a challenging time, but it's a change. It's a time of transformation. And I think if we can make it through this really rough time, I think we're going to come out in a better place.
Well, I've heard him, you know, I've known you personally and always felt, even when I would run into you, you're always very kind and warm and, you know, engaging. And I know that you've done that for so many other people. And sometimes just do that, you know what I mean? Being approachable and being willing, like you said, to listen and to just kind of, and us, you know, open your ears and be respectful, you know, and just open with the kindness and compassion, you know, and let people come to you. And I always appreciated that with you. I put out a little email to some people about like, what are some Kevin Lyman stories? And I did hear a bunch of, everything was just so amazing how you would teach them little things, you know, and inspire them to keep going. So, you know, you've done that for so many people and you keep doing that, and everything had a charitable end to it, like the food drives and the opioids and now the fentanyl and the mental health. So we just champion anybody who is continually putting themselves out there. So I wanted to just send you a big hug and a blessing, and thank you for your time today, because it means the world to me. And
if I get up there in our van now that I've turned in the tour bus for a Sprinter van, you know, we'll come up and see you up in that part of the woods.
Yep, we're in Montana. I'm writing a book, but I'll be in LA often, and I'd be happy to help you in college or anything.
Let me know when you're down here.
Thank you so much.
All right, Gina. Thank you so much.